Hello. So today is Thursday, the 18th, I think it is, of February. Yeah, Thursday 18th. Um, and there was a main kind of topic I wanted to talk about today, which was motivations and productiveness. But um, I just had a meeting with my placement tutor, Otis. Always lovely to speak to. Um, and I kind of wanted to touch on a subject he brought up. Um, I'll go kind of go through it, I guess. Um, so the main kind of thing that was brought up were tick boxing exercises, and these are, it doesn't necessarily have to involve tick boxes, but these are kind of processes, usually very bureaucratic processes that involve um, where things can only happen if certain criteria are met. So it's something I see a lot in the work I do. But it was also kind of interesting to hear that from an academics point of view, it's something they experience a lot. And um, so his example was how the tutorials we do are very tick box exercises because they're kind of spaced out through the year, five of them through the year, and even if there's nothing to really report on, they have to be done for the purpose of getting, completing this academic year, and it has to be done on his part because it's his job. Um, and yeah, I thought it was quite interesting to hear that from someone in a different sector, because in the sectors I work in, so kind of um, so in charity, the third sector, but also kind of there's some overlap into social care. We experience that so much. So, for example, a um, lot of organisations and charities that work with people with disabilities require very particular needs for these people to be able to join. Um, as so criteria. Um, so it might be they have to have a disability. It might be they have to have be on certain benefits. It might be that they have a EHCP plan, which very few people do. Um, it may be that they have to show a diagnosis of a disability, um, which is whole having a diagnosis part is terrible because um, I'll get onto that in a bit. Um, so yeah, really interesting to hear the um, kind of differences there, but also the similarities. Because in because something I do on the side is trying and I'm trying to do it a lot more with the student union now, is work on how we can support disabled students, and I really want to kind of further the campaign on this. Um, but one of the big issues is how disabled students are identified and how their needs are identified. And I guess it's the same issue I face in my placement as well. So for people with disabilities to be able to get support, they do often need to prove a diagnosis and other issue, other things. But I'll probably focus on disability because that's the big one. So they have to show show a diagnosis. Now the issue with diagnosis is it doesn't necessarily um, well, first it's really hard to get a diagnosis, especially if it's a neurological condition. But a diagnosis also doesn't show need. So it becomes almost impossible to give every student the support they need, or every individual in the case of our members. And it's a big, massive issue within primary and secondary education as well, because where these tick box exercises happen, they also often need a diagnosis, and I think there's bigger issues there because there's funding related to that. And if a student doesn't get that funding, then there's such a massive impact on their learning. So that's quite, I thought it was interesting to hear the tick box exercise wasn't just an issue in my sector, but it sounds like it's one in many other sectors that I'm yet to explore. And these things are quite frustrating as well. But the main kind of solution, or kind of annoyance with tick box exercises is they don't account the needs of someone. So you can tick that someone has a disability, you can tick someone's on benefits, you can tick someone's receiving certain kind of support, but that doesn't indicate the need of support. And so something we say a lot in the disability community is this need over diagnosis. And with the kind of example Otis was talking about, it was having tutorials when they're needed. When I'm got a question, when I'm kind of worrying about something, that's the need. And kind of the idea of all this is that the need is addressing the need is a lot more effective and important to an individual, rather than the alternative of the tick box exercise. The tick box exercise it only pleases the bureaucratic systems we have. And I mean, these bureaucratic systems often, I don't know where they end up in academia, but they just mean that I'm not receiving certain grades. But in the charity sector, and with some overlap into social care and education, these tick box exercises go further up into local authorities, into commissioning, and they can have a massive impact on the type of funding schools get, or social care services providers get. It may mean that certain charities don't get the grants they need. So yeah, that's quite, I thought that was all really, like, I kind of wanted to get that out because I thought it was really interesting, and I wanted to give that while it was still in my head. What else was in the meeting? So another one was just talking about reflection and how important that is. And I actually on point with that, I on reflection, I do these when I see the need for it, not every 2 or 1 weeks, like they say. I do these whenever I see a need for it. So I don't necessarily follow that tick box. But anyway, on reflections, we're talking about how what kind of how we should be reflecting and how that's useful to not just my current placement year, but when I go back the year doing my dissertation and other studies, and then further on into when it happens, which I'm not looking forward to, when it comes to job searching and into my future careers and later ambitions. Thinking about ambitions is really important, and just kind of generally just think about how I can reflect how I can reflect positively but also effectively, and I found, because in the past we're often told, I've experienced a lot of different kinds of reflective practice before, and oftentimes we're encouraged to like write out a placement diary every week or something like that. And I've never really liked that because different things can happen week to week. But also, again, you feel like it's a very tick box exercise, reflective practices. But that's kind of why I like doing these, because I'm not writing, I'm kind of verbally speaking kind of my internal thoughts, which gives me a chance to personally reflect. Because otherwise I'd just be kind of reflecting, if I'm writing something down, I'm kind of just reflecting my thoughts onto paper. But speaking to the camera, I am verbally recording my thoughts, but then I can also think over them as I say them, and it just feels a lot better, and I feel like I'm getting a lot more out of it. So yeah, that's kind of my thoughts, both on reflecting when there's a need for it rather than the tick boxes, but also kind of the reason why I choose to do them like this, and yeah, I guess it's kind of why they're not always that organized or planned through. I try my best, but I usually have a rough plan, but they're not, you know, as planned through as you would have them written down. But I feel like that's a lot more effective the way I'm doing it now than uh, writing down a page of what I've done in the last week, because it could be uh, that I've kind of done the same things all week, or it could be that um, what I've been working on long projects, so there's not a lot to talk about, um, which I'm often doing things week by week, but um, yeah, it's quite hard to write something down when instead of talk about something, or at least that's my kind of personal experience. Um, yeah, so all that. So the second thing I wanted to discuss were um, motivation and productiveness, which was going to be the main thing of today. And I wanted to touch on this because I feel like throughout the last year, things have been, more so the academic year, things have been all over the place with how productive I feel and my own motivations. so kind of addressing the whole motivations part. Motivations are um, the push, that it's the push behind wanting to do something. So um, it's the push around why you want to get up in the morning. It's the push around why you want to uh, get a certain job. It's the push around why I want to get a degree. So I think overall my motivations will always stay the same. Um, there might be fluctuations every so often. However, my kind of general motivations of I wouldn't say they're necessarily completing my placement, because that's my motivations are um, making a good impact on my placement. Uh, being able to give them a lot from my time, um, being an effective asset. Though, more generally, the motivation to support younger people have their voices heard. Those are my motivations. And again, those motivations always kind of fluctuated based on my thoughts and ambitions at the time. But I'd say they've always kind of stayed the same, and my motivations have been quite similar. We're in relation to my degree as well. Always supporting other people, helping other people, kind of, working for people rather than profit. Those are my main motivations, I guess. So those have always kind of stayed the same, but the main focus, I guess, is the productiveness, because since September, my situations have changed so much. So last summer I was feeling really good, ready to get into my job, and that was my kind of, there's that kind of big push as well. So I was, feeling really motivated to get into the job, and in the first kind of weeks and months, I was feeling really motivated, really productive in what I was doing. And it was a good kind of time as well, because we were able to get out. I was able to go into the office. I could, I had a lot more freedom with what I could do in a day. And then get to the November lockdown, which seems ages away now, and I felt, all of a sudden I was stuck inside, and this was when I was back at my place in Portsmouth, and I still felt kind of good because I was working in my own space. I felt comfortable in that space. I still had people around me, of other students, so I still felt quite productive, and there's that lockdown was a lot more relaxed. There's still stuff we could do, so that there's a little less productiveness kind of there. And then I guess it kind of went a bit downhill from there. So that kind of stayed the same up to Christmas. I was quite happy. And then going straight into the new year, we're plunged straight into another lockdown, and I think that's kind of when my productiveness hit, kind of really went down a lot, because I was stuck at home, not necessarily in my own space. I'm still able to communicate with other people, but it just doesn't feel right. You know, it's not my kind of environment. It's not a great working environment. So that's kind of when my motivations have, my productiveness has gone down most. Um, and it can be difficult because you have that motivation to be able to work hard and everything, but you find you know you're not working as hard as you could be because you know you just don't feel right. You know, you see more exciting things around you happening. um, you know, you're not in your ideal workspace, you're not with other students. um, you know, there's other things going on around you as well. You know, I might have had a long work weekend and I just feel tired. um, so yeah, it's quite difficult to deal with that productiveness. And you know, I think there's also been lots of lags as well, where you know, I think sometimes there are ups and downs in the productiveness as well. You know, I find quite often there may be a week where I just don't feel like doing anything at all. Other weeks where, you know, other weeks of days where I feel like pumping so much work out. Um, you know, and even if that's kind of getting some emails done or writing a report, I feel quite good about that. Yeah, it's been, yeah, and sometimes I feel guilty because I'm only working 3 days a week as well. Um, and so when I'm not being the most productive, I feel a bit guilty to what I'm actually trying to do with my placement, which was, you know, leave a good impact. And if I'm not working to my best or not working as hard as I can, then there's, you know, there's obviously issues there. Um, yeah, I guess I don't really address it enough, but um, you know, those that kind of productiveness level is always kind of all over the place. I don't think there's ever been a, you know, well, I think I guess more generally it's been worse this academic year, the productiveness. And you know, it's not necessarily I don't think that's necessarily a fault of mine or anyone else's. It's more just kind of life, and I'm not trying to kind of be too hard on myself about that. But I think it's something I've definitely become more aware of. And you know, again, I just kind of want to get my thoughts out there via this. Um, yeah. So I think I'll kind of leave it on that note. But um, yeah, again, I'll kind of update you when I see the need for it, not when you know, and I think there's often quite a need, so hopefully it won't be too long, but it's usually need over doing it every other week or whatever. But I'm trying to do these as much as I possibly can, and yeah, that's that. I guess an update on what I'm doing in a minute. Um, so as in my own situation, I'm still at home, and I'm hoping to be back in Portsmouth by early March. Hopefully that happens. What am I working on? I started planning out a few bits for our next pizza night. So it's an event where we get more people into Dynamite, more members and everything. Our last one was kind of successful, I think. It's always hard to say. So the plan is I'm planning that, and it's going to be on the topic of aspirations, not just kind of jobs and everything, but also um, kind of interests and hobbies. I'll talk about them aspirations, my own aspirations in the future. I think that'll be good to talk about. Um, yeah, so I'll do that in the future. Um, but yeah, the plan is for that. Um, so before that pizza night, I'm planning to um, with another service do some kind of presentation to one of the local schools to their maybe possibly their assembly, which would be kind of ideal because we'd be having we could be targeting at least 50 to 100 young people, which would be ideal range as well because we're particularly trying to attract younger people to our group. So that's kind of what I'm doing at the minute. I'm planning that and um, a few other little bits, but yeah, that's what's happening. And I guess I'll leave that there and update you when things change. All right, see ya.